Look how tiny I don't think I've ever seen tie rods that small before. Anyway, let's get them fitted up. That's the part number over there. Once I've got these inner tie rods fitted, the car will be ready for new tires and specifically wheel alignment. It made no sense getting the wheel alignment done before I fitted inner tie rods. And this was only 22 quid for the pair. So, got to do it, right? This is the tool that I'm going to use to remove the inner tie rods. You can see it looks like a U-bolt. This clamps over the larger portion of the inner tie rod, and then you tighten up these two bolts to get it nice and snug, and then you pop a wrench in there, a socket wrench, and you can remove them. So I'll show you in a moment how that works, but this is a tie rod remover tool. Because access is very restricted on the inside of this to get a spanner over here, you need a tie rod removal tool like this. And what you do is loosen these up enough to get this on from this end. So I will remove the outer tie rod, which is connected to the hub, and then slide this on like that till it's over there. And then when it's over that little round part of the inner tie rod, tighten up these nuts over here so that it gets a good firm purchase on the inner tie rod like that. Then I can put an extension in there and then use the breaker bar to loosen that up, and then it'll just unscrew out. And that is how you replace the inner tie rod. And now that I have the wheel off, I have access to the inner tie rod. Now, this is the outer tie rod, which I replaced previously. The outer tie rods were worn, but it turns out that the inner tie rods are not in the best condition either, which is not surprising, seeing as though the car's done 138,000 miles. I don't know if this is original, not sure what this little pink tag is for. So what I'm going to do is pull this boot down so that I can get access. I'm going to pull the boot down to expose this round part of the inner tie rod, which is this section in the middle there. You can use a spanner on the end of that. The problem is access, really, which is why you use this tool over here to fit over there like that. The first thing I need to do is remove these outer tie rods. So that means releasing this nut over here. Thankfully mine are new, so these will come off fairly easily. Grab my wrench. There we go, one little tap and it's out. In order to remove the inner tie rod, I first need to remove the outer tie rod. So that should just unscrew now, because it was put in here fairly recently. I've got myself an adjustable wrench because I want to minimize the trips to and from the garage now. Okay, so the easiest thing is going to be to put this back into the whole thing there, and then just need to break that lock between the two of them. There we go. So once I've broken that connection between the two, I can then just unscrew the outer tie rod end. In hindsight, because the inner tie rod was only 11 or 12 pounds, I should have just replaced these as a unit. Now what I don't want to do is disturb the position of this nut, because that will give me an indicator of where to put the nut on the new tie rod, so I can have a reasonably straight alignment to drive down to the alignment center. But what I'm going to do now is remove that rubber boot in there. I've got the tie rod tool on now, and I'll be able to put a ratchet in there and just crack it open. Now, unfortunately, a 17mm open end spanner and a 17mm ratchet end do not fit over there, which is why I've had to use the deep socket. Well, thankfully I managed to find another 17mm ring spanner. It's just a standard ring spanner which fits over here. So I'm going to clamp these down nice and tight. You have to be careful that you don't tighten the tie rod tool down against the spacer at the back. There's a Teflon spacer, a bush, that goes behind the inner tie rod end, and you don't want to clamp down on that because you need to retain that piece. But seeing as though I'm doing a refresh, might as well do it all. Got a bigger breaker bar on here. Hopefully this is going to work. So that is now loose. You can see that it's free to move. Now I can remove it. So this should now just screw out, but what's stopping it from coming out is the actual clamp. So I'm just going to remove that. Now that I've loosened those bolts, it can just slide off, and then I should just be able to rotate that inner thing. There it is, and that's the spacer I was talking about. You need to retain that for the new one, so I'll just keep hold of that. Now you can see here's the new inner tie rod end. And this one actually has a 32mm kind of bolt pattern on the back. This one has no such thing, so hopefully this one will be much easier to fit. But what I want to do is I just want to check that these are the same length before I install this, and then I need to position this bolt at the right place so I've got roughly straight steering to get down to the alignment center. Now before I install the inner tie rod end, I am just going to spray some penetrating fluid on the anti-roll bar bolts. You need to put this little spacer on the top there, like that. It just fits over that recess. And then I can put this in. Now that is a 32mm, and I do have a 32mm spanner, but the problem is going to be if I can actually get to the end of it. So before I put that in, I want to put some copper slip on. And then screw it in there. Now I do have a new rubber boot that I've got to go and pick up. I couldn't get that bolt off the end of the other tie rod, and as a matter of interest, the space between the bolt and the end of the inner tie rod that I need to match is 24mm, which is roughly an inch, not quite an inch. So I've got that in place now. We'll see if we can actually get 32mm spanner in there. we wish, maybe from the bottom, let's have a look. Yes, all right, yep, that's gonna work actually. Yeah, perfect, nicely done. Before I forget, I need to remove the old clamp. There you go. That's the one that I mangled with the long crowbar. The new boots will come with zip ties or another alternative, probably zip ties, just to hold that inner section in place. I've just got back from a local Motor Factors to pick up some Lamforda inner tie rod steering rack boots, which at £20 a pop each make them twice as expensive as the actual inner tie rods. So what I'll do now is I'll just slide them over there and attach them, but before I do that I'm just going to give those inner tie rod joints a little bit more of CV lithium moly grease, because they do have grease in them, but it's a little bit sparse, I think. These Lamforda steering rack boots come with the actual boot, which is plastic, it's not rubber. It does come with the little clamp, which you need those special clamp pliers to tighten up, which I don't have, so I'm going to slide this on in the meantime and then use just a zip tie on there. And then it does come with a little clamp like this, little spring clamp for that end over there. Slide this over. That's the little spring clip for the end. Put that on in the meantime. I'll clamp it up just now. Put the nut on. Now it's got to go on about 1 inch. So I've got my tape measure here. Groovy! Now I can put on the actual tie rod end. So I'll wind it in as far as the nut. There we go, give it a turn. And then that will pop in there. To use these little fancy clamp pliers. You don't have to, but they do make life a lot easier. Don't forget, smash that thumbs up button, give us a follow, and let's see what else we can do to sort out this little Panda 4x4.